The day the first bulldozer rolled across my land, I wasn't prepared for the storm it would cause. It was a Tuesday, a regular day in the suburbs, where the most exciting thing that ever happened was Mrs. Delaney's new birdbath that she'd proudly displayed in her front yard. But that morning, the rumbling of heavy machinery shattered the quiet routine of our little neighborhood. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, squinting against the bright morning sun. I had a feeling something wasn't right when I saw the two men standing near the property line, pointing at the ground like they owned it. I walked closer, confusion creeping in. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice steady but firm. "What do you think you're doing?" One of them, a tall guy in a reflective vest, turned and gave me a look like I was interrupting his day. "We're building homes," he said, as if I was supposed to know exactly what that meant. "I can see that. But this is my property," I said, frustration bubbling up. "You have no right to be here." He glanced over at the other guy, then back at me. "Well, ma'am, we have all the permits from the HOA. We're just following orders." My heart skipped a beat. The HOA? Those overzealous gatekeepers of suburbia? The very same people who once fined me for having an extra flower pot on my porch? "What do you mean, the HOA?" I asked, struggling to process what was happening. "This is my land. I've lived here for years. There's been no agreement with anyone about this." The man's tone turned dismissive. "I suggest you speak to your HOA rep. We're just the contractors. We're building 98 homes here." My blood ran cold. There was no way this was happening. My land was supposed to be protected by zoning laws, by legal agreements, by everything that kept neighborhoods like ours from turning into a labyrinth of cookie-cutter houses. Yet here they were, bulldozing my land to build a new development. And it wasn't just a few houses, it was nearly 100. I turned and marched back into my house, adrenaline now coursing through my veins. My mind was racing. Who had signed off on this? What the hell was going on? It didn't take long for me to figure out the culprits. The Marlow Heights Homeowners Association, the self-proclaimed guardians of the neighborhood, had somehow decided my property was ripe for development. The worst part? They didn't even have the decency to ask. The HOA had always been a bit of a joke around here. A group of well-meaning but insufferably petty individuals who took joy in regulating the color of your mailbox or how high your grass could grow. But this was something else entirely. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for the HOA's office. The phone rang once, twice, then someone picked up. "Hello, Marlow Heights HOA. How can I help you today?" The voice was cheerful, annoyingly so. "I'm calling about the construction happening on my land," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm the owner of the property, and I've got bulldozers tearing up my yard." There was a brief pause. "Oh, are you referring to the new development on Oakwood Ridge?" The woman sounded like it was just another routine matter, like they were planning to build a new playground or repaint the community center. "No," I snapped. "I'm talking about my property. How did you manage to get the rights to it?" "Well, ma'am, there's been a rezoning issue," she said, her tone shifting to one of professional detachment. "A vote was passed last year, and the land was approved for development. You should have received the notice." I froze. A vote? A notice? My blood was boiling. I hadn't received a damn thing. "Listen, I don't know who dropped the ball on that, but this is my land, and I'm not just going to let you bulldoze it for a new development," I said, my voice tight with anger. "I'll see you in court if I have to." The woman on the other end of the line sighed, clearly bored. "I'm sorry you feel that way, ma'am, but the paperwork is in order. You might want to contact your attorney if you're serious about contesting it." The line went dead before I could respond. I was left standing there, holding my phone, with a sense of dread creeping into my chest. This was bigger than I thought. I spent the rest of the afternoon digging through my files. Property deeds, land surveys, zoning ordinances, anything that could prove this was my land and that they had no right to touch it. But no matter how much I dug, there was nothing that suggested the HOA had any legitimate claim. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something had gone seriously wrong. The HOA's president, Karen Harrington, was notorious for pushing her own agenda. She'd been in power for years, and from what I knew, she didn't like to take no for an answer. She was the one who'd led the charge to get the neighborhood's mandatory landscaping rules enforced, even fining people for having the wrong kind of flowers. I knew I couldn't fight this on my own. I needed help. So, I did what any sane person would do in a situation like this. I called my lawyer. Chapter 2. The legal battle begins. By Friday, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, a stack of papers spread out in front of me. Paul Matthews was a no-nonsense kind of guy, the sort of attorney who didn't waste time on pleasantries. He took one look at the stack of documents and raised an eyebrow. "This doesn't look good," he said, flipping through the papers. "The HOA has a lot of influence in this neighborhood. They've got permits, zoning changes. This is going to be a tough fight." "I don't care," I said, my voice hard. "I'm not backing down. This is my land, and they're not getting away with this." Paul leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "You're right. But the question is, how far are you willing to go? The HOA will play dirty. They have the resources. And if they're really behind this development, they'll make things difficult. I don't care how dirty they play," I said, determination filling me. "I'll expose every last one of them. This isn't just about the land anymore. It's about standing up to people like Karen Harrington, who think they can walk all over the rest of us." Paul sighed, but there was a glint of respect in his eyes. "All right then, we'll start by filing for an injunction to halt the construction. But you need to prepare for the fact that this could get messy." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. This wasn't just about stopping construction. It was about something much bigger, taking back control from the petty, entitled people who ran things around here. As I left Paul's office, a plan began to take shape in my mind. I wasn't going to play by their rules. No, I was going to turn the tables. They wanted to bulldoze my land. Fine, but first, they'd have to answer to me. And I was going to make them regret ever crossing me. The next few days felt like a blur. I spent my evenings buried in paperwork, trying to dig up anything that could help my case, while during the day, I had to face the increasingly aggressive bulldozers tearing into my land. I felt like I was living in two worlds, one where everything was supposed to be calm and routine, and another where everything was falling apart. It was Friday afternoon when the first official notice from the HOA showed up. It was a letter, professionally printed, and as I opened it, my stomach twisted. "Dear your name. This letter serves as a formal notification regarding the zoning and development of your property at address. The HOA has conducted an assessment and confirms the construction of 98 new homes on the land you currently occupy. Any further objections or disputes should be taken up through the proper legal channels, as outlined in the contract you signed upon moving into the community. Sincerely, Karen Harrington, President of Marlow Heights Homeowners Association." I could barely breathe as I reread the letter. I didn't sign any contract agreeing to any development. Nothing in my file said I was bound by any such agreement. But the HOA had their paperwork, and that meant they were already steps ahead of me. I didn't even bother calling Karen. I knew she would just gaslight me into submission like she always did. Instead, I called Paul and set up an emergency meeting. By the time I got to his office, I could already tell from his face that things weren't looking good. He didn't waste any time. "We need to act fast," Paul said, looking over the letter. "They've got all the paperwork, and from what I can see, they've played this game before. They've got connections, and Karen Harrington doesn't lose." I slammed my hand on the desk, frustration bubbling over. "She's not going to get away with this. This is my land, and she's stealing it right from under me." Paul held up his hands, trying to calm me down. "I get it, but you need to stay focused. If we're going to win this, we have to go after them where it hurts. We'll file for an injunction, but I want to go over every detail. Look at how they've been operating. There's bound to be something we can use against them." I nodded, still burning with anger. I couldn't just let them bulldoze my life away. I had to fight back. The following week was a blur of meetings, phone calls, and frantic preparations. Paul was relentless, digging into the HOA's history, looking for any shred of corruption or negligence that could tilt the scales in my favor. Meanwhile, I spent my nights walking the edges of the property, watching as the construction crews continued their work, seemingly oblivious to my presence. One evening, I was sitting on my porch, sipping a glass of wine, when I saw her. Karen Harrington, strutting down the street in her perfectly pressed outfit, a smug look on her face as she surveyed the construction. I didn't need to be a detective to know she was behind this. I stood up and walked toward her, my pulse quickening. "Karen," I called out, my voice smooth but firm. She turned around, her smile widening when she saw me. "Oh, you," she said, her tone dripping with faux sweetness. "I wasn't expecting to see you out here. It's such a lovely day, isn't it?" I gritted my teeth. "Is it, Karen? Because I have to say, I'm having a hard time enjoying the view with all these bulldozers on my property. Her smile didn't falter. Oh, I'm sure you're upset. But the decision was made months ago. It's really out of both of our hands at this point. You know that's not true, I snapped, stepping closer to her. I never agreed to any of this. Your HOA has no right to my land. She raised an eyebrow, a smug glint in her eye. Oh, I think you'll find that the HOA has every right. You just haven't been keeping up with the community rules, have you? I was getting closer to losing my temper. You know damn well I didn't sign any contract agreeing to this. So tell me, how did you pull this off? She tilted her head, a calculating look crossing her face. Oh, honey, you should really pay more attention to the meetings. The vote went through, and as president, I had a very strong hand in ensuring the development was approved. It's all legal. You really should have read the fine print. I clenched my fists, trying to control the rage building inside me. But I wasn't going to let her see how much she was getting under my skin. You're not getting away with this, I said, my voice quieter but more dangerous. Oh, I think I already have, she said, turning on her heel, the sound of her high heels clicking sharply against the pavement as she walked away. I watched her disappear into the distance, my mind racing. She wasn't just playing dirty. She was playing to win. I needed a new plan. Later that night, I stayed up long after midnight, poring over every piece of legal paperwork I had, looking for some kind of flaw, some mistake I could exploit. That's when I found it. In the original property agreement I signed when I bought the land, there was a clause about zoning changes and development, but there was also a loophole, something about notifying the property owner before any changes could occur. I grabbed my phone and called Paul right away. Paul, I think I found something, I said, my voice tight with excitement. There's a clause in the original contract. It says they had to notify me before any development could happen. They didn't do that. I never received a notification. That's a major breach. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before he spoke. You're sure about this? I've checked it 100 times. I'll forward you the documents now. If they didn't notify me, it means the whole development could be voided. There was a click as Paul accepted the files I sent him, and then a sound of papers shuffling on his end. This is big, he said. If we can prove they never gave you proper notice, we could have the development stopped in its tracks. I felt a surge of hope. Maybe I wasn't out of options after all. We need to act fast, Paul said. I'll file a motion to stop the construction. If we win, Karen and the HOA will be in deep trouble. I sat back in my chair, a wicked smile creeping across my face. They had no idea what they were up against. The next day, I watched as the construction crews continued their work, unaware that their world was about to come crashing down. I had been preparing for this moment for a while, but now, as I walked toward the site, I was calm. My mind was focused on the task at hand. I had a plan. Karen had underestimated me. Now it was time to turn the tables. And this time, I wasn't going to give her a chance to win.